The spark of conflict. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species, each with its own way of life, its own beliefs. Among them, the Zirons were known for their unmatched strength and sophisticated technologies. They had conquered many worlds, bringing them under the rule of the Galactic Empire. Their reputation for being ruthless had spread across the stars, and no one dared challenge them. But there was one species the Zirons had underestimated: humans. At first, the Zirons saw Earth as a tiny, insignificant planet, a mere speck in the endless void of space. They believed humans were primitive, too weak to stand up to the might of the Galactic Empire. But something had changed. A spark had ignited. The humans, though young in the grand scheme of the galaxy, had been quietly watching the Empire's expansion, learning, observing. They knew the time would come when they would have to stand their ground. What they didn't know was that the Zirons had been watching them too. One fateful day, the Zirons made their move. The Galactic Council, made up of the most powerful species in the galaxy, had issued a decree. Earth would be assimilated. The Zirons, eager to prove their dominance, were given the task of carrying out the invasion. With their massive fleet and advanced weaponry, they expected Earth to fall quickly. But they were wrong. As the Ziron fleet approached Earth's orbit, a strange feeling of unease began to settle over the soldiers. It was a feeling they couldn't explain. The humans, with all their technology and ambition, had not shown any signs of fear. Instead, they were calm, silent. The Zirons had expected panic, chaos. But what they got was something else. The first attack came without warning. A Ziron cruiser fired upon a small human outpost on the edge of the planet. The humans had been waiting, preparing for this day. They launched their own counteroffensive using an old fleet of ships, once thought obsolete, but now reactivated and ready. The humans were showing a side no one had seen before. They were not just fighting back. They were adapting, using their creativity and resourcefulness in ways that surprised the Zirons. The humans didn't rely on strength alone. They used tactics the Zirons had never encountered: ambushes, traps, and unpredictable strategies that caught the Zirons off guard. The first few days were a shock to the invaders. The humans, with their limited resources, were holding their own against a much stronger foe. But that was just the beginning. On the Ziron flagship, the leaders were growing anxious. They had not expected resistance like this. They had expected to crush the humans easily. But instead, their forces were being stalled. Their powerful ships, which had once seemed unstoppable, were now facing a challenge they hadn't prepared for. The humans were not following the script. They were rewriting the rules of war, and the Zirons didn't know how to respond. Why are they resisting? One of the Ziron commanders asked, pacing nervously on the bridge of the flagship. These humans are supposed to be weak. A second-in-command turned to the commander, his eyes wide with confusion. This isn't just resistance. They're fighting with a purpose. They've made us the enemy. The Ziron commander paused. He realized the truth. The humans were no longer afraid. They had shifted from being prey to becoming predators in their own right. And now, the Zirons were the hunted. But even as the humans began to gain ground, the Zirons knew they were just scratching the surface of what was to come. The humans were strong in their own way, but the Zirons had something the humans didn't: advanced technology and a massive fleet that could overwhelm any enemy. At the same time, something strange was happening. There were whispers among the Zirons. Something had begun to shift, and it wasn't just about winning the war. There was a hidden fear growing among the Zirons, a fear that they had never felt before. It was the fear of human ingenuity. They had underestimated the humans, thinking they could never match the might of the Galactic Empire. But now, they were realizing that the humans had a weapon far stronger than anything the Zirons could imagine: creativity. It was something the Zirons had never truly valued. To them, the galaxy was a place where power and might ruled. But the humans were showing them something different. They were fighting a war not just with strength, but with brains. They were adapting, changing, and they seemed to be one step ahead at every turn. The Zirons had made a grave mistake. They had sparked a conflict they couldn't control, a war that was no longer just about who was stronger. It was about who could outthink the other, who could adapt fastest, and who could survive. And that, the Zirons would soon learn, was something they couldn't prepare for. The spark of conflict had been lit, and the universe would never be the same again. The war had just begun, but it felt like the galaxy was already holding its breath. The Zirons, once confident that their advanced technology and military prowess would lead them to an easy victory, were now facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The humans, though they had little in terms of resources or experience, fought with a fierce determination that was hard to ignore. As the battle raged on, the humans' creativity and adaptability became more and more apparent. Military leaders on both sides were watching closely, studying every move the humans made. On the Ziron flagship, the commanders were becoming increasingly frustrated, while on Earth, humanity was rallying together like never before. Despite being outmatched in terms of firepower, the humans had managed to stall the Zirons' initial onslaught. In fact, in some regions, they had even started to gain the upper hand. Small skirmishes broke out across Earth's surface, with humans using the terrain to their advantage. Tunnels, mountains, forests, and oceans became their battlefield. They set traps, launched guerrilla tactics, and never fought in the way the Zirons expected. One of the Ziron generals, known for his cold strategic mind, was growing increasingly agitated. He stood in the war room, his eyes fixed on the large display screen. "Why haven't we crushed them yet?" he demanded. The humans were supposed to be weak, insignificant. How could they have caused so much trouble? One of the human resistance leaders, a skilled tactician named Evelyn, had become a thorn in the Ziron forces' side. Using old military ships and tech, she had managed to coordinate attacks on several key Ziron supply lines. The Zirons' advanced communications were being jammed, and their fleets were scattered across Earth's atmosphere, trying to locate her forces. But Evelyn was elusive, her movements unpredictable. On a small moon base in Earth's orbit, the humans gathered, planning their next moves. The Zirons were relentless, but the humans had something more than just brute strength. They had ingenuity, a will to fight for their survival, and something the Zirons didn't expect: unity. People from all walks of life, scientists, soldiers, engineers, and ordinary civilians, had come together to stand against the invaders. Meanwhile, deep within the Ziron command center, Emperor Kaler stood staring at a holographic map of Earth. He clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. "Why is this taking so long?" he muttered, glaring at his generals. "Why are we being delayed by such a primitive species?" His second-in-command, Commander Kira, was equally frustrated. "The humans are more resourceful than we anticipated. They are adapting quickly, using everything available to them. They're not fighting as we do. They're unpredictable." The Emperor slammed his fist onto the table, his voice rising. "I will not be outsmarted by these primitive creatures. We will end this quickly." But there was something deeper happening now, something the Zirons were starting to notice but couldn't quite understand. As much as they tried to overpower the humans with firepower, the humans' persistence seemed to grow stronger by the hour. The harder they pushed, the more creative and clever the humans became. It was as if every victory by the Zirons only fueled the fire within humanity. On Earth, as the battle continued, the human spirit remained unbroken. Every time they lost ground, they regrouped, learned from their mistakes, and came back stronger. It was an endless cycle of adaptation and growth that left the Zirons in a constant state of confusion. But what the Zirons didn't know was that they were about to face something much worse than their enemy's creativity. They were about to face something that no amount of military might could stop. In the heart of Earth's capital, in the midst of chaos, a new leader emerged, someone the Zirons had never expected. President Gabriel, a former scientist turned wartime leader, began to rally the population, urging them to embrace the war not just as a fight for survival, but as a defining moment for humanity. Gabriel's message spread like wildfire. People everywhere were organizing, building weapons, and preparing for the next phase of the war. The Zerons may have had strength and technology, but humans had something they didn't: hope, resilience, and the power of unity. As the days wore on, the Zerons' initial overconfidence began to crumble. The once invincible empire was now facing something it didn't understand: a species that refused to give up, a species that would never surrender. And that realization hit the Zerons like a tidal wave. With every victory the humans claimed, the Zerons' confidence wavered. The empire, the same empire that had crushed civilizations far more advanced than humanity, was beginning to realize that this war was unlike anything they had ever fought before. And the humans weren't about to stop. The war had shifted. What once seemed like an unstoppable invasion was now facing a force that could not be predicted: the human will. Every day, the Zerons struggled to understand the humans they were fighting, but they couldn't grasp the deeper power that fueled them. Their advanced ships, weapons, and strategies were no match for the human ability to adapt and innovate. Back on Earth, the human resistance had gathered their forces for the most ambitious operation yet. With every small victory, their morale grew, and the belief that they could win this war spread across the planet like wildfire. Scientists worked tirelessly in underground labs, engineers crafted new weapons, and soldiers honed their skills for the upcoming battle. It was clear to everyone now: the humans weren't going to back down. President Gabriel stood in a darkened war room, a holographic map of Earth and the surrounding galaxies displayed in front of him. He gazed at the map, tracing the movements of the Zeron forces and calculating every possible response. Despite all the losses, despite the overwhelming odds, he believed one thing: the Zerons had underestimated them. "We've made our stand," he said to his commanders. "But now we need to hit them where it hurts. We need to target their supply lines, cripple their technology, and remind them that they're fighting something they've never seen before: humans." The room fell silent as the generals around the table exchanged glances. This wasn't just a war. It was a fight for survival. Gabriel knew this wasn't a battle they could win with sheer strength alone. They would need to use every tool at their disposal, and most importantly, they needed the human spirit to be their greatest weapon. In space, the Zerons had begun to realize that something was different. Their fleet had been stretched thin, their forces scattered as they struggled to locate the elusive human resistance. They had underestimated the humans' resourcefulness. They had underestimated their ability to fight with everything they had. Emperor Kaler stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human movements on the screen. His jaw tightened in frustration. "This is impossible," he muttered. "How could they fight like this?" Commander Kira, standing beside him, spoke up. "We knew they were resilient, but this is beyond anything we've ever faced." "Tell me something I don't know," the Emperor snapped, running a hand through his dark hair. "What is it about these humans that keeps them going? They have no advantage. They're not even close to our level in terms of technology. Why haven't they given up?" Commander Kira hesitated. "Maybe they've realized something we haven't. Maybe they're not just fighting for survival. Maybe they're fighting for something much more." The Emperor's eyes narrowed, a sudden realization dawning on him. It wasn't just a war to the humans. It was a fight for everything they stood for. Back on Earth, Evelyn, the brilliant tactician who had once been just a strategist among many, was now gaining more recognition for her daring missions. She had managed to infiltrate a Zeron supply ship and retrieve valuable intelligence that could turn the tide of the war. The mission was dangerous. One wrong move, and the humans could lose everything. But Evelyn's team managed to get in and out without being detected. "What did you find?" President Gabriel asked when Evelyn returned to their underground base, her face covered in dirt and sweat. She handed him a small data pad. "The Zerons have a weakness," Evelyn said, her voice steady but filled with determination. "They rely too much on their advanced tech, and we can exploit it. We take out their central command station, and they'll be crippled. We'll have a chance to hit them where it really hurts." Gabriel looked at the information, his mind racing. This was the opening they had been waiting for. "We're going after their command center. If we take that down, we'll have the upper hand." The plan was set in motion, and preparations for the final push began. Across Earth, humans rallied to the cause. They knew the risks, but they also knew that they had to fight with everything they had, for this was their last chance to turn the war in their favor. As the attack on the Ziran command center began, something incredible happened. The humans fought with a focus and intensity the Zirans hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about technology or tactics. It was about something deeper, something that was driving them to defy the odds. In space, the Zirans watched in disbelief as their once indomitable command station was brought to its knees. The humans had done it. They had broken through, and the shockwave from the explosion sent ripples through the Ziran forces. "Impossible," Emperor Kaelor shouted as he watched his empire falter. His eyes widened in realization. They were losing to humans. But the Zirans weren't done yet. They would try to recover. They would try to regroup. But there was something they didn't realize. Humans had found their true strength, and it wasn't just their technology or weapons. It was the unbreakable will that no force in the galaxy could shatter. As the first victory for humanity settled in, the humans knew this was just the beginning. The battle was far from over, but the Zirans had learned something they could never forget. Never underestimate the power of a species fighting for its survival. The battle raged on as humans and Zirans faced off across the cosmos. After the devastating loss of their command center, the Zirans were in disarray, their once dominant forces now vulnerable. However, they were not going to give up easily. The Ziran Empire, shaken but not defeated, was regrouping, preparing for their next move. And the humans, though victorious in their most recent mission, were well aware that they couldn't afford to get complacent. President Gabriel sat in a dark room, lit only by the soft glow of the holographic displays in front of him. His fingers hovered over the console, pondering their next steps. The victory had given them a brief moment of respite, but they all knew it was just a temporary win. The Zirans would retaliate, hard. "We can't let our guard down," Gabriel said, his voice grave. "We've wounded them, but they're going to strike back. And when they do, they will come with everything they've got." Edelin, standing beside him, nodded. "We're ready. Our defenses are stronger now, and the people are motivated. We've learned how to fight back. They won't get another easy victory." Gabriel turned to face her. "But we need to be smarter this time. We need to hit them where it hurts, cut off their reinforcements, disrupt their supply chains, and create as much chaos as we can before they can rebuild." As they spoke, their intelligence network worked tirelessly to gather more information about the Ziran forces. There were reports of a massive fleet assembling at the edge of the system, a fleet so large it could overwhelm Earth's defenses. But there was one thing the humans had learned from the past. Zirans didn't understand human unpredictability. Back in the heart of the Ziran Empire, Emperor Kaelor stood at the command center, his anger barely contained. His empire had never been so close to the brink of collapse, and the humiliation from the destruction of their command station stung deeply. Yet he knew that the humans were not invincible. They had achieved a temporary victory, but they couldn't keep up the fight forever. "The humans are proving difficult," Kaelor muttered, glaring at the screens. "But their victory won't last. We will show them what real power looks like." He turned to his generals, who stood at attention, waiting for orders. "Prepare the fleet. We strike back at Earth. But this time, we'll do it differently. We will overwhelm them with sheer force. And we will make an example of their pathetic rebellion." Commander Kira, who had become a trusted advisor to Kaelor, looked at him with doubt. "Emperor, their resistance is growing stronger. They're adapting. It's no longer just about brute strength. They're using their resourcefulness. We may not have the advantage anymore." Kaelor's eyes darkened. "They are desperate. They're playing on hope, but hope is a fragile thing. We will crush it, just as we've done with countless other civilizations. The Ziron fleet, a massive armada of ships designed for destruction, began its march toward Earth, intent on wiping out the human resistance once and for all. But as they moved, they remained unaware of the trap that was being set for them. The humans had learned, adapted, and were now prepared for the Zirons' assault. They had the advantage of knowing their enemy's tactics, and they intended to use that knowledge to turn the tables. The humans began gathering their forces, preparing for the inevitable counterattack. They didn't have the numbers the Zirons did, but they had something the Zirons lacked: ingenuity. Evelyn worked tirelessly, coordinating with engineers, strategists, and soldiers to devise a plan that could take down the massive fleet. It wasn't going to be easy, but humans were never ones to back down from a challenge. "We need to hit them before they reach Earth," Evelyn said, studying the holographic map in front of her. "If we wait until they're too close, it'll be too late. We need to disrupt their fleet before they can land and wreak havoc." Gabriel paced in the background, watching her carefully. "We've got one shot at this, Evelyn. If we fail, Earth won't survive." "We won't fail," she replied, her tone unwavering. "We've learned from our mistakes. This time, we strike first." Meanwhile, the Ziron fleet closed in on Earth, their ships moving as one massive force. On board their flagship, Emperor Kalor watched the humans' defensive movements on the screen. He smirked. This time, there would be no surprises. The humans would be crushed under the weight of his empire's might. But as the battle began, something strange started to happen. The humans weren't acting in the way the Zirons had expected. The moment the first Ziron ship entered the Earth's atmosphere, the humans launched their counterattack. The skies above Earth erupted with explosions as human forces used every weapon and strategy they had to disrupt the Ziron advance. Mines were triggered, hacking drones disabled key Ziron ships, and EMP bombs knocked out their shields, making their ships vulnerable to attack. The human fighters, though outnumbered, fought fiercely, using every trick they had to keep the Zirons off balance. "We've hit them where it hurts," Gabriel said, watching the live feed of the battle unfold. "We've turned their power against them." But despite the humans' ingenuity, the Zirons were relentless. Their counteroffensive was brutal, and the skies above Earth turned into a battleground. The humans had gained some ground, but they knew this was far from over. The Zirons were adapting too. It was a fight for survival, one that would determine the fate of humanity and the future of the galaxy. As the first waves of the counterattack continued, one thing became clear: this war had only just begun. The humans had shown their strength, but the Zirons had not yet revealed their true power. The final battle for Earth was far from over. The human resistance had achieved a remarkable victory in the early stages of the counterattack. They had proven that their strength wasn't just in numbers, but in their ability to outthink and outmaneuver their enemies. But as the Zirons regrouped and launched their retaliation, the humans knew that their true test was yet to come. President Gabriel stood on the balcony of the command center, watching as the battle raged outside. The city below was a maze of crumbling buildings and scattered debris. The fight was not just in space anymore. It had come to Earth's doorstep. For the first time since the Zirons arrived, humanity was truly facing extinction. "We've made progress," Evelyn said, standing beside him, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "But this is far from over." Gabriel turned to her. "We've taken down their command ships, disrupted their fleet, but they keep coming. We need to end this once and for all." The words weighed heavy on both of them. They had seen the destruction the Zirons were capable of, and while the humans had inflicted serious damage, they still faced the full might of an empire that had conquered countless worlds. And now, Earth was in the crosshairs. Across the galaxy, the Ziron Empire was reeling from the loss of its fleet and strategic bases. Emperor Kalor was seething with rage. His empire, which had once been unchallenged, was now on the verge of collapse due to the human uprising. The once proud Ziron fleet was scattered, their ships damaged and in disarray. On the bridge of the Xiron flagship, Kaylor clenched his fists. "The humans have proven to be more than we expected," he growled. "But they are nothing compared to the might of the Xiron Empire. We will wipe them from existence." His eyes narrowed as he gazed out at the viewscreen. In the distance, a massive fleet of Xiron ships approached Earth. They had learned from their previous mistakes, and now they were coming for the humans with a force unlike anything the world had ever seen. "We will strike at their heart," Kaylor declared. "No more distractions, no more games. We will crush them." But as the Xiron fleet prepared for its final assault, something unexpected happened. The humans, instead of retreating or giving in, had one last trick up their sleeve. They had gathered every scrap of technology, every last reserve of strength, and they were ready to launch their most daring move yet. In the darkened command room, Gabriel and Evelyn stood together, watching the final stages of their plan unfold. They knew that what they were about to do would either win the war or doom them all. It was a last-ditch effort, one that relied on the humans' greatest asset, their courage. "We've got one chance at this," Gabriel said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "We've got to hit them hard, hit them where it hurts. Their leadership must be taken down, their ships must be disabled. We can't allow them to regroup again." Evelyn nodded. "The Xirons think they can overpower us with sheer numbers, but they're wrong. We've learned how to fight smarter, and we've learned how to use their arrogance against them." The plan was simple, but deadly. The humans had worked tirelessly to build a fleet of their own, piecing together the most advanced technology they could scrounge from their resources. They had secretly constructed a weapon capable of disabling entire fleets, a weapon that could turn the tide of battle in one swift strike. As the Xiron fleet descended on Earth, the humans launched their final attack. It wasn't an overwhelming offensive. It wasn't about sheer firepower. It was about precision. They had learned how to strike at the heart of the Xiron forces, taking out key ships and disrupting their command structure. The weapon, a massive EMP device, was fired from a hidden base on Earth's surface. The shockwave rippled through the Xiron fleet, frying their systems, shutting down their shields, and leaving their ships vulnerable. For the first time in the war, the Xirons were in disarray. Commander Kira of the Xiron fleet watched in disbelief as her ship's systems flickered and failed. "What is this? What's happening?" she shouted to her officers. "EMP surge," one of the crew members cried. "All systems are offline. Shields are down. We're exposed." The entire fleet was plunged into chaos. The humans had successfully disabled the Xiron ships, leaving them open to attack. And that's exactly what the humans did. With their fighter jets and warships, they launched a coordinated strike, picking off the remaining Xiron ships one by one. The tide of the battle was turning. The once mighty Xiron fleet was falling apart, and their soldiers were scattered. The humans, with their superior strategy and resourcefulness, had managed to bring the mighty empire to its knees. But even in the face of defeat, the Xirons refused to give up. Emperor Kaylor, desperate to salvage whatever he could from the ashes of his empire, ordered a final, reckless assault. "We will not surrender. We will not be humiliated," he screamed, watching as his fleet disintegrated before his eyes. However, it was too late. The humans were relentless. Their courage, their willingness to fight for their survival, had proven to be their greatest weapon. Slowly but surely, the last remnants of the Xiron fleet were destroyed, their ships falling one by one. The battle for Earth was over. The Xirons had been defeated, but it came at a great cost. The Earth had been ravaged by war, and the scars of the conflict would last for generations. But humanity had triumphed. Against all odds, the species that had once been considered weak and primitive had proven to be the galaxy's greatest threat. As President Gabriel stood amidst the ruins, looking at the remnants of the Xiron fleet, he couldn't help but feel a sense of victory. But it was a victory tempered by the loss of so many lives, and the knowledge that the war had forever changed the course of history. "We did it," Evelyn said softly, standing beside him. "We beat them." Gabriel nodded. "We beat them, but the universe will never forget what happened here." The silence that followed the final strike was deafening. The great clash between the human resistance and the mighty Zeran Empire had finally reached its conclusion. The stars, once filled with the roaring ships of battle, now felt eerily quiet. The Zerans were gone, their fleet destroyed, their leadership toppled, and their empire reduced to nothing more than ashes scattered across the stars. For the humans, the victory had come at a price. The earth had been ravaged, entire cities reduced to rubble, and countless lives lost. The war had taken its toll, and though they had emerged victorious, humanity was forever changed. President Gabriel stood on the balcony of the once bustling capital, now a shadow of its former self. Below him, the broken streets were a testament to the devastation that had occurred. "It's over," Evelyn whispered, her voice filled with both relief and sorrow. Gabriel turned to her. "Is it really? The Zerans are gone, but the damage they've caused, the people we've lost, it's going to take years to rebuild, and even then, we'll never be the same." But despite the deep scars left by the war, there was something else in Gabriel's heart, a sense of pride. The human spirit had been tested, pushed to its limits, and yet they had not only survived, they had triumphed. The world was devastated, yes, but the future remained in their hands. And that future, while uncertain, was theirs to shape. The leaders of the resistance and the military gathered in the makeshift war room. The room was a far cry from the grandeur of the chambers they once had, but the war had taught them the importance of simplicity and function over luxury. The air was thick with the weight of their victory, but also with the heavy burden of the decisions that lay ahead. "We've won," General Martin said, his voice hoarse but resolute. "But we've seen what the Zerans are capable of. What if someone else comes for us next?" Gabriel's gaze darkened. "That's a question we'll have to answer, General. We've won this war, but we've also seen just how fragile peace can be. We cannot let our guard down." It wasn't just the aftermath of the battle they had to contend with now. The universe was vast, and the Zerans had been only one part of it. Their empire had collapsed, but there were countless other species out there, some of which might still view humanity as a threat. Or perhaps they might seek to take advantage of the power vacuum left in the wake of the Zerans' fall. "Do we rebuild our world?" Evelyn asked quietly, as if reading Gabriel's mind. "Or do we focus on building an alliance with other species before they decide to take their shot at us?" Gabriel's answer was not immediate. His mind was racing with the possibilities, the challenges, and the hopes for what was to come. He knew that the days ahead would be difficult. The war had ended, but the real work had just begun. Rebuilding Earth was just one part of the puzzle. The greater question was how to ensure humanity's place in the galaxy. After all, they had just proven they could defeat the strongest empire the galaxy had ever known. But would that reputation be enough to guarantee their survival in a universe that still regarded them as a primitive species? "We rebuild," Gabriel said at last, his voice steady. "But we do so with our eyes open. We've made enemies, and we've made allies. And as for the future, we'll face whatever comes together. The galaxy may have underestimated us once, but we won't let that happen again." The room fell into a somber silence. They had won, but the victory was bittersweet. It had been a war like no other, and its repercussions would echo throughout the galaxy for centuries. The Zeran Empire had learned the hard way that humanity should never be underestimated, but there were still many unknowns ahead. As Gabriel stood up from the table, he looked out over the desolate city. Earth would rebuild, humanity would rise again, but the memories of war would never fade. The galaxy would never forget the power of the species that had stood up to the Zerans and crushed them. Humanity had proven its strength, but more importantly, they had shown the universe that they were capable of more than survival. They were capable of greatness. "Let's get to work," he said, his voice filled with conviction. The galaxy isn't going to wait for us. The war was over, but the struggle for humanity's future was only just beginning. With the fall of the Zeron Empire, the galaxy had been thrown into a state of uncertainty. Many species, once content to remain in their corners of the universe, now turned their eyes toward Earth. The victory had sparked interest, curiosity, and of course, fear. What would the humans do next? And how would they ensure that they weren't the next target? The ruins of Earth's greatest cities were a constant reminder of the cost of war, yet they also served as a symbol of human resilience. Amid the destruction, pockets of life flourished. Families rebuilt their homes, communities formed, and those who had lost loved ones found solace in the knowledge that the battle was over and the future was theirs to shape. Gabriel, standing at the center of a newly established council of leaders, gazed out over the city from the newly constructed Capitol building. The world's major leaders, representatives from every corner of Earth, were gathered. There was no longer any question about Earth's place in the galaxy. It had proven itself. But the bigger question now was how to move forward. "We've defeated the Zerons, but we can't rest on our laurels," General Martin said, his face weathered and scarred from the battles he had fought. "We need to prepare for what's next. The universe is full of dangers we haven't even begun to imagine." Gabriel nodded thoughtfully. "We can't assume everyone will view us as allies. The Zerons weren't the only ones with power. We've learned that we must remain vigilant. But we also know that we have the strength to face whatever comes our way." The newly formed council was filled with people of different backgrounds: scientists, diplomats, military leaders, each with their own ideas about what humanity's next steps should be. The primary concern was not just the rebuilding of Earth, but also ensuring that humanity had the resources and allies it needed to defend itself in the future. "Perhaps it's time to look beyond our world," Evelyn suggested. She had been a key figure in the resistance and played a vital role in the fight against the Zerons. "Our victory over the Zerons has put us on the map. We need to make alliances with other species, show them we're not just a threat, but an opportunity for cooperation. There's so much we could learn from each other." Her words hung in the air, met with a mixture of agreement and doubt. The galaxy had not been kind to humanity, and many were still hesitant to trust other species. But Evelyn's point was clear: Earth could not survive alone forever. They had to be strategic, form alliances, and establish a foothold in the galaxy. There were others out there who could either help or harm humanity's progress. As the days passed, diplomatic channels were opened, and envoys were sent to the leaders of various galactic factions. Earth was no longer the underdog in the galactic arena. The universe had seen what humanity was capable of, and the power dynamics were shifting. However, not all were eager to form alliances. A new threat began to surface in the shadows. A faction of rogue Zeron generals, embittered by their fall from power, started rallying other species under a banner of vengeance. They spread rumors, inciting fear and distrust about humanity's future intentions. "There are whispers of a new war," Gabriel said quietly to Evelyn one evening, his eyes dark with concern. "They'll stop at nothing to get their revenge. We have to be ready." The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, but humanity had learned a valuable lesson in the last war. They could survive. And not only could they survive, but they could rise from the ashes stronger than ever. The time for rebuilding Earth was now. The time for preparing for the next battle, whatever it may be, was also now. Gabriel stood before the council once more, his resolve unshaken. "We've shown the galaxy that we will not be intimidated. But now we must show them that we are capable of more. We are capable of peace. We are capable of greatness. This is just the beginning of humanity's journey across the stars." With those words, Gabriel and the rest of humanity took their first steps toward an uncertain future. They were not alone in the galaxy anymore, and they would have to face new challenges, but the spark of hope had been lit. Earth had faced its greatest threat and emerged victorious. Now it was time to embrace the future, ready for whatever it might bring. Humanity had earned its place in the universe, and this was only the beginning. The dawn of a new era had arrived, and it was one that would be shaped by humanity's courage, determination, and strength. The story of humanity's rise was far from over. It was only just beginning.